Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Brown Bag Bets. Powered by BetSperts, we are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christensen, and joining me as always with a nice hat on today. What are we rocking today? What's on top of the noggin?
This is from a fishing outlet store in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Because all my family members
you've actually been to J-Hole.
Yeah, all my family members had gotten fun souvenirs for the trip yet, and Dad hadn't got anything. So I'm like, I'm going to buy a hat. I'll always wear a hat.
I love it. Let's jump in. We've got a few things to cover today. We have a guest who will be joining us shortly, a pretty popular guest, arguably our most popular guest. I'm very excited to talk to him, but we'll start with a little basketball. Are you going first? Or do you want me to start with the association?
You start, because by the time if I let you go second, the other game might be canceled too. Like literally, like 6 minutes ago, Alex did have a couple plays today, and 6 or 7 minutes ago, a game got canceled, and it was a play that you had for today. So 0-1 on the day with a push, not too bad.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like the Atlantic game is canceled. Actually, they've even pulled it off everywhere here. I can't even remember, frankly, who they were playing. I can't remember even who they were playing. But that's canceled. Unfortunately, I like the under there. We do have another under, though. We continue our underful NBA season. Charlotte, Dallas. Under 219, and actually I even see some 220s. I grabbed 220 last night. If you follow me on BetSperts, again, Alex Christensen with no space there, you got your notification about that. 219, 220 some places. I would play this down to 219. Two teams that have been very profitable on the under this year. Really like, again, the matchup and the style of play. But, one of the nice things that you can do at this part of the season is start to look at, some of the value that you've gotten on these teams. And both of these have been dead under teams for the year. So happy to pile on here, especially when my numbers are as well showing a little bit of an edge. I make this about 215. So, again, I'll play it down to 219. 4 points is a big enough edge for me. And I just think we'll have a slow pace game here. We've seen with Charlotte, although they put up points, the pace has been down. Same with Dallas here. So happy to grab under 219, even 220 if you're lucky.
Perfect. Yeah, and just a couple basketball plays for me before we get into football. Nothing major here, just some model plays. Undefeated Citadel Bulldogs, 8-0, haven't played anybody. Going to play a tough team. I just don't think we could be giving them. They were 15 last night. I don't think we'd be giving them that many points, even against. Obviously, Furman is the toughest team they played. It's not even close. They've played a bunch of lower level squads here, but they are at home against Furman, getting 15 points, 14 here. You could have got a better number last night. I like this one quite a bit. Duquesne is one I'm not sure I ever say right. The Fighting Dukes of Pittsburgh.
Duquesne is correct.
Yes, the Dukes. I'm nailing mascots today. I like this one quite a bit too. This one is on the move. I think you can still find some 6.5s and a back-to-back. I'm betting into the back-to-back. Sometimes I go against the trend. Sometimes I go against it. I don't care. I'm just going with my numbers on this sort of stuff. The Wyoming Cowboys out there in the Great West. Boise State tonight. I think this is the one where they did play each other last night. Or no, it was Monday, excuse me. They played and they got stomped. They didn't score for like the last 8 minutes. This should be a closer game. I trust my Cowboys. One of the better teams as far as turnover to assist and just not turning the ball over. So hopefully they can put a few in the bucket there in the second half in this one. And that's it for me for basketball day. It's nice to actually play one. I didn't have any plays yesterday. I had one the day before. It got corona'd. So yeah, the Furman game will be high scoring. Go look at that total. That's a lot of fun. So, but we closed out the season college football wise last week. We're going to look ahead. Do a mini retrospective here before we look ahead, because looking ahead is usually just how much does Bama win by next year. So without further ado, we'll bring in a guest. You know him from Saturday mornings if you get up early, which sometimes I do. Chris Felica, the Bear, College Game Day. It's been all over the world. I didn't realize how long he'd been there, but College Game Day for like 25 years, man. That's a long time there. And of course, the podcast with Stanford Steve. That's when I listen to when I get a chance for college football, but I never miss it for horses because I'm really bad at horses and I need all the help I can get there. So how we doing, Mr. Felica?
I'm doing well, and yeah, now that the college football season's over, I can maybe dedicate some time to what I did early pandemic when there was absolutely nothing going on other than horse racing, and maybe send out some stream of consciousness threads on the Gulf Stream and Oaklawn and Keeneland meets and whatever's going on. So yeah, looking forward to just kind of relaxing for a little while.
Yeah,
I would
somebody
love
was
that.
joking with me the other day about, what did you do for content during the pandemic? And I was thinking back to some of the stuff people did. You guys were doing interviews with Coach Doug's. I mean, that's what it came down to. Coach Duggerton was on the podcast.
It's so funny not funny, but you think back to that, and people are like, well, what did you like? How I don't want to say important, probably isn't the right word, but give Big Cat credit. He created something that occupied people's time and just was entertaining when people needed an outlet and just mindless viewing or conversation. It was there. So what he did by just simply getting, he had like 100,000 people watching him play a stupid video game. It was amazing. And I was like, you know what? I'm a researcher. I'm a college football guy. I'm gonna just kind of throw myself into the conversation and come up with some stupid nuggets that actually were factual regarding the teams that he was playing. And and Steve and I had some fun with them on the pod as well. But no, think back to that, and that's how we were getting through the spring and part of the summer. It's incredible that we were able to. I mean, look, there are a lot of people who didn't think we were going to be able to have a season or get through a season, or maybe there wouldn't be a college football playoff. But we made it through, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the retrospective part. Is do you have any other takeaways from the season other than, I mean, that's everybody, the collective sigh of relief, and you got to give me 3-4 more weeks to do the relief on the NFL. But the fact that we got through the season, I know it was weird. The Pac-12 started way late. The Big Ten started late. You had a team that was what was Ohio State going to the like 7-0?
6-0 going to the playoff.
Yeah, the records were all over the place. Some teams had not played as many games, but I mean, they pulled it off. And hopefully, I guess we won't have to look at a season like this ever again. Hopefully, this fall is normal. But I mean, any other takeaways besides that?
I mean that was it. Was, and Chris Fowler hit on. He did his little nightcap recap after the title game, and what he said is something that I completely agree with. It was just like there was really no happiness. It was just more like relief that we got through it. And I said some things on Twitter on Monday too about how it was just like, it was almost therapeutic for me, the fact that we did have our little 3-hour show on Saturday morning. I was just thinking all the people that couldn't do anything for 9 or 10 months and hadn't left their house, and hopefully it did provide a little bit of an outlet. But other than that, it was, it's kind of the obvious, just the greatness of Alabama offensively and where they are in terms of greatest teams of all time. But that's the obvious one. But I think at the same, of course, I get a phone call while doing this. Why wouldn't I? It just all of the things that this little abbreviated season provided that maybe a normal season wouldn't, and maybe some things that we can take away. Like the most talked, like one of the most bet on games all season was like the Wednesday night MAC game, like before Thanksgiving. That's something that maybe we should take away. And obviously, I think we'll see more midweek MAC games. People love them. The most talked about game of the year before the playoff was a Coastal Carolina BYU game that was created 2 days before the game. So will this cause teams to maybe leave an open date, maybe come up with maybe people will be creative and schedule some of these games? I mean, that was great. The Coastal Carolina story was great. The BYU story was great. The fact that you had Iowa State a couple of yards away from reaching from winning the Big 12 was a great story. You had Ball State winning the MAC in a shortened season. All of those little things at the sea. Liberty was a missed field goal away against NC State from finishing undefeated as well. Like all of those things that we don't normally get during a complete college football season is what I'll take away. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to getting back and having the big non-conference games like we were supposed to have this year. We'll have Oregon, Ohio State. We'll have Georgia, Clemson. We'll have Miami, Alabama. We'll have Florida. All of those big traditional non-conference games that hopefully things will be okay in the fall, and we can get back to just having some excitement and fans and passion and music and bands and tailgating and all the things that we're really used to.
Yeah, for sure. The flexibility thing, like that's what I'm hoping. We've talked about that, and Alex, you've talked about that with how the NBA was able to just get real flexible, real quick to make the bubble, and they might have to get real flexible, real quick right now, all of a sudden as well. But some of the flexibility that teams showed to be like, we're just going to schedule a team, and not just lower level, like Central Arkansas, just picking up whoever would play them every week. But yeah, the fact that BYU and Coastal put that game together was amazing on short notice. It sucked because I had a pretty good ticket on when we found out the Liberty quarterback was going to be out for that game. I'm like, oh man, I have some huge value on this. Of course they're going to cancel this game. So I guess I won't miss that, is having so many tickets canceled by Corona. But,
it's funny you say that, because back in, I guess it would have been March or April, before we would have known what was going to happen if season was, I had to write a column for ESPN.com about win totals and on the season based on the schedules that we had. And like I had like Kansas under, who are they beating? Iowa State over, Coastal Carolina over, Arizona under, like all these like totals that wound up like would have been like easy, no sweat winners wound up being like thrown by the wayside, because it was the schedule that you would have had to play at the same time that was made. So you're right, all of the voided tickets and the canceled tickets are certainly something that we're not going to look forward to, and hopefully never have to deal with that again.
I did want to touch again quickly on those, the game that was rescheduled, like you said, Coastal Carolina and BYU. Do you think that's something we might actually see in the future? I thought it was really interesting, even just from a rules perspective, that they were allowed to do that. And then from, just setting everything up, that, like you said, in 2 days, we went from nothing to, a televised, ready to go football game. Do you think that is something we might see in the future?
I don't think, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to. I hope we do. But I just don't get the scheduling part where you need to schedule a game right now that's going to be played in 2027. I don't get it. If nothing else, maybe what you could do is maybe not like within a week, but maybe you leave a date open before the season, and you schedule a game in June or July or April, like after spring ball or something, that maybe fits your schedule. A couple teams looking for a game, and maybe they realize maybe a team was like, I think where you could see this kind of maybe be a benefit is to some of those group of 5 teams where maybe you have a Power 5 team on, like say, using UCF for an example from a couple of years ago, when they had, I think, Georgia Tech on the schedule. No one knew Georgia at the time. They probably scheduled Georgia Tech when they were coming off of a New Year's Six or a BCS Bowl, whatever it was, in the Orange Bowl they played that year, and Georgia Tech wound up not being very good. So maybe it allows an opportunity for a team, whether it's a Cincinnati or I know BYU's not group of 5, but or a team from the American, like maybe they have that open date in there, and they could say, hey, you know what? Georgia Tech isn't what we thought they were when we scheduled them. Hey, we should go out and get another Power 5 team that could help our schedule. So maybe in that sense, it could be applied moving forward.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. I'd like to see more creative stuff like that. I guess the only other question I did have about last season, obviously there's a lot of noise based around all the schedule changes, around all the COVID stuff. Was there anything that, popped out to you, maybe a particular team or performance that you thought might be underrated due to kind of all that noise? As you start to look forward to next year, one of the big things you got to do is kind of clean off the previous year. So are there any things that maybe you can think about that might be a little underrated, might be a little overrated as people start to look forward? And, naturally everybody looks at last year to try to figure out what happens the year coming.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin is a team that what happened, they were stricken by a lot of COVID issues, obviously with the so impressive against Illinois, and then everything went wrong with them, receivers getting injured, and I think they're going to be a team that next year will be in a lot better position, and I think you can kind of write 2020 off as a complete outlier for them with how their regular season went. I think they're an obvious team to look forward to maybe taking a step forward next year. In terms of like COVID, not necessarily COVID stuff. I wasn't necessarily high on Oregon this year going into the season, but I think they showed why that was the case. They were so young. It's so many positions. I think they're another team that they will be much better in a sense. 2020 worked out really well for them because they weren't going to get into the playoff, and this was going to kind of be a season to get ready for the next season. And Mario Cristobal was able to get Tyler Shuck a lot of reps, and all those young defenders were able to get plays, and it really didn't cost them anything. They still wound up winning the Pac-12. So I think what happened this year for Oregon in terms of getting ready for next season will certainly help them a lot. And on the other side, I think it could maybe, I don't want to say work against Texas A&M, but you're going to see a lot of hype for Texas A&M in the 2021 season, just because the only game they lost was a game against Alabama, which they were blown out. They won a bunch of games this season where you could say maybe they very easily could have lost to Auburn. Probably weren't the right side in the Orange Bowl against North Carolina, but they wound up covering. The Tennessee game before running back didn't play. That was a potential sketchy game. But at the same time, this is a team that is going to be loaded on defense. They have Alabama coming to Kyle Field next year. They're probably going to be top 5 again in the preseason next year. There's going to be expectations, and a lot of expectations now for Jimbo Fisher and A&M, the way they have recruited to maybe make that next step. And depending on I don't know when that game's going to be. Maybe it is early in the year, and you're looking at A&M getting Alabama on its home field early in the year. All of the losses that Alabama will have on offense, we know they have recruited great, but at the same time, a road game and potentially a raucous atmosphere, if fans are able to be allowed in full force again, I think A&M is going to be the buzz team, obviously, of the offseason as we head into 2021.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have the odds there, Andy?
Yeah, I looked at the odds. This is kind of, we joked about this, how small it is, and the fact that I said you could wipe off these 2 right columns, and then I'm like, you could wipe off the 3 right columns and maybe half of the first column as well. But I mean, the usual suspects at the top: Alabama 3.5 to 1, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, Oklahoma, Florida, Notre Dame. Then they even have a field bet in there for anybody not listed, which please don't take that.
I was going to say, who's in the field?
But even LSU, it's down there at 30 to 1. Who knows what the quarterback situation will look like and what the recruiting will look like. Michigan with Harbaugh back, 40 to 1, and Oregon, someone we just talked about at 40 to 1. I think the Pac-12 was a bit of an afterthought just because of how they started their season, when they started their season, the fact that other teams were already rolling. We had all this Cincinnati, BYU, Coastal hype, and the big, and the big teams in Clemson, Notre Dame, and Alabama were doing what they did. So the Pac-12 did just kind of get lost in the shuffle as far as media coverage in general. And sometimes that happens with how late those games are. I feel like I fall asleep for those games all the time. But I mean, is there any value early on in a long shot at all in the current market, just how these teams continue to come back? I mean, think about how Alabama reloaded with just receivers, and we'll get to Heisman in a sec here, but you look at the Heisman markets, and in the top 10 players, you have a Bama quarterback, a Bama running back, people that just the next guy is up or in your top 10 to win the Heisman next year.
Yeah, it's hard for me to really look beyond the obvious in terms of winning the national championship. Like, if there were odds to make the playoff, I mean, yeah, that's where you could come up. But that's why I threw Iowa State out there potentially as a long shot to take, that you want to take a flyer out to simply like make the. Can certain teams get to the playoff? Yeah, they can have put together a magical season, win their conference. But how many teams are really going to be equipped to pull that double of beating Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State, beating both of those teams, and that is really what it's going to take to win the title. So, like, there aren't many. Like Georgia obviously is a team that is equipped to do that now with JT Daniels coming back, George Pickens back, and a team that's recruited greatly. You look at their schedule; they open with Clemson next year. If they win that game, obviously they are legit. Like, they have a little bit of margin of error, but even if they don't win that game, I think they get Auburn and maybe Arkansas, maybe from the West. I'm not sure on Arkansas, but they don't play Alabama in the regular season. They don't play A&M in the regular season. So, like, the schedule is there for them to get to Atlanta and maybe get to the playoffs. So, like, if you're looking for someone outside of Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State, like Georgia would be the team. But if you're looking like of those three teams, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, I think Clemson is probably the best equipped, of what we know is coming back next year of those teams. Alabama's got all those losses. They have to go to A&M. They have to go to Florida. They play Miami in the opening, but they should handle Miami to open the season. Ohio State's going to have to replace Justin Fields and some other spots on that offensive line as well. So, like, of the big three, I would say Clemson's probably the best position to get back to the playoff and maybe win the title.
Yeah, and like, Alex, with a lot of your futures in the NBA, we've looked at like stuff other than just to win the title, and we're sitting here. It's the 13th of January. We got a long time, and like you just said, Bear, there's to win your division in some of these conferences that have two sides. There's to win your conference to make the playoffs, season win totals. There's a lot of way to attack some of these teams. Just you can say this team is super undervalued at 100-1. Yeah, well, it's still 100-1. It's you don't get 100 permutations of the season to play out for you. You just get the one. They might be undervalued. You might actually win some money if you play them to win their conference, win their division, season win total, something like that, rather than taking a super long shot in a market like that.
Yeah, there are differences in quality of 100-1 shots. Like Lamar Jackson a few years ago with 100-1, they win the Heisman Trophy. We should not have been 100-1. Like Joe Burrow to win the Heisman a couple of years ago at 100-1 or whatever he was. That was a ridiculously insane price as well. Like I know a few people that had both of those. I didn't have Burrow, but yeah, there are different levels of really good prices that are worth playing.
Yeah.
Have you started to take a look at the Heisman market yourself? Are there any names that pop out? I know it's hard to ask you to pick 100-1 winner, but those are always kind of fun lottery tickets to have for the season.
You got to take a look at, and I think ultimately we'll see what happens with the transfer portal if other players, what players that might transfer somewhere else that might help. Like does a wide receiver or a running back transfer to a school that has a great quarterback that might help their offense and might help the quarterback boost his play as well, and maybe he's helped by that. I think Breece Hall is going to be a guy that people are going to look at again in terms of like the non-obvious guys. Like, can he put together the type of season that he did last year? Can Iowa State have a season like they did this year with 20 starters coming back? I think it is. But of all, like the amazing thing is like there were some names on that list that were like 30-1 or shorter that like have no shot to win. Like Keaton Slovis has no shot to win the Heisman. And yes, he's not going to be good enough for him to do that. Sean Clifford might not even be the quarterback at Penn State, and he was like 30 or 41. So there's so many names that have like no shot to win that you just completely stay away from. But I think of the guys that were listed, like you can't play Spencer Rattler at 4-1. That's not smart. Yeah. Bryce Young might not even be the quarterback at Alabama. Who knows what they're going to do? Like DJ Uiagalelei was the one that I thought would be at the 10-1 price that William Hill initially posted him at. Like if I had to play someone now, it would be him because we saw his ability against Notre Dame, against the playoff team. We saw what he's capable of doing. We know he's going to have a ton of skill coming back around him. They have the marquee game to open the year against Georgia, which if they win, odds are they're going to go undefeated and run back to the playoff. If they lose, Clemson still has an ACC schedule with no Miami, no Notre Dame, no North Carolina. Will they be favored big in every game and should get back to the SEC title game again? So I think of all of those, Uiagalelei was the one that seemed to make the most sense at that initial opening price of 10-1.
And appreciate you saying his name, so I didn't have to.
That's impressive.
Of all the people, when you look at this, a lot of these guys, you're getting the marquee team's quarterbacks, the people that are stepping in for it. And he's the only one who really got to see extended time of when we had, the first Notre Dame game there, when we had some COVID issues. The only thing, I looked around, and it's tough without looking at schedules things. I think I got overexcited for Casey Thompson at 50-1 just because I'm just jacked up on Sark juice right now. But again, I haven't looked at the Texas schedule, but man, the show he put on with, and again, it's easier to put a show on when you have all those pieces, but the show he put on with that offense, like I'm pumped. I don't know. I mean, before we let you go here, do you have a take on Texas Sark and I mean, again, Casey Thompson's. I'm pretty sure he's going to be the starter. That's a thing, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to be, and then the running back as well. We've seen Sark and his ability to use. I mean, how he lined Najee Harris up all over the place and used him out of the backfield and all the pre-snap motion. It's just really, really pretty to watch. So look, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Sark can go in there and win right away. If you're into recruiting rankings and talent level, Texas is recruited pretty well, according to all of those. Just for some reason, we'll see if he can stay aggressive. I think that was in talking with a lot of Texas fans and watching Texas. I think the biggest issue that they had was Texas's. I don't want to say ability because that's not the right word, but they were prone to not playing loose and free and aggressive and wide open in games that they really needed to. Like, you look at the bowl game, they just went out and were aggressive, played loose, played open, and it was a free-flowing offense. There were a lot of times where Tom Herman, I guess, got very conservative and wasn't aggressive and didn't use all the players that they had. So I think that's probably going to be the one thing that Sark can do, is just come out and do what he did at Alabama and be aggressive and utilize all those weapons in different fashion.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I'm talked into it. 50. I did have a Burrow. I had a Burrow ticket, and I like once you have a taste of a long shot Heisman hitting, like you have a thirst. And I am going to dig deeper into this. These are really early markets, and many a slip twixt the cup and the lip between the way the schedules hash out and some of these transfer guys. So, but we do. I
was going to say what I don't say killed me, but what stung for me this year is I made 2 Heisman bets before the year. When it was this period we were going to have the season we were going to have. I played Trevor Lawrence at like plus 250, and I played Jalen Waddle at 65-1. So like Jalen Waddle doesn't get hurt, it very easily could have been him instead of Devontae Smith. So it was like I was right, but I was wrong. So that one's going to stink for a little while, knowing that an Alabama won the wide receiver, and I had an Alabama wide receiver ticket to win the Heisman. It wound up being Devontae Smith and not Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, as I looked down the card or the odds screen there. It took me a while before I ran into wide receivers again. It's super, and just a testament to Sark and that entire offense and what he did down there. When what Smith did is just pretty amazing. As far as it's been since '91 that we had a wide receiver win it. So no fault. I had a Mac Jones ticket. I felt really good about for about 10 weeks.
Yeah, no, he was certainly in it, and wasn't it weird how that totally changed like week to week. 1 week it was Lawrence, and while Lawrence is out, then it's Justin Fields, and then Ohio State missed a couple games, and then it's Mac Jones, and then it's like, whoa, Devontae Smith is really good. Well, Kyle Trask, they beat Georgia. It was so weird how every week it seemed there was a different Heisman frontrunner, and I think the weekly odds kind of indicated that. It was so bizarre, and another bizarre thing in this season.
Yeah, it was a bizarre season, I suppose. So, well, thanks for your time. Definitely some insights on the college football for sure. I'm excited. It's a long time between here and there, but like as we said, these markets are going to start popping up earlier and earlier. You're going to see, once we get a little further in, we'll see some division stuff, some conference stuff, some win totals once we get to the spring. So again, I don't have to say this, but you can find them on ESPN. Once we get back to some game day stuff, you can find them on his podcast. And mini recap for the day: Citadel, Duquesne, Wyoming. And you did have one basketball play that did not die today.
So far. Fingers crossed we get there.
Charlotte Dallas made it through. So until tomorrow, we'll see you.